We all know the Irish justice system is a complete joke. It's a farce. This case is something that I covered a few weeks ago, but it has came to light again because the savage in this report who attacked a young girl who was pretty much blind, visually impaired, threw her into concession stand, terrorized her and her mother and her little brother, has escaped a prison sentence. This has to be heard and seen to be believed. And if there's one case that highlights just the ineptitude and the leniency that's shown to aggressive men and women that perpetrate acts of violence in Ireland, this is the one. So if you haven't already done so, subscribe to this channel. Feel free to share this content wherever you want. Cut and paste it, drop it into your Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, whatever you want to do with it. But let's get the word out here now. Let's look at the story. Spurred jail is the headline. A man who dragged a child away from her mother outside a shopping centre walks free. Of course he does. Of course he does. It must be very strange to hear that he's not going into prison, the judge said. The judge said that? Okay. So this is the perpetrator, Stephan Obelngoa. Dublin man, of course. Man who dragged a visually impaired child away from her mother has been given a suspended sentence. What a joke. What a joke. Let's look at the details. Dublin Circuit Criminal Court heard that Obelngoa of Deerpark Road, Tallaght, Dublin, 24 years old, pleaded guilty to assault causing harm, assault of a peace officer, resisting arrest at the square in the Tallaght, Dublin, on October 2023. He has 6 previous convictions and was on bail at the time of the offence. Judge Sinead Nicholchen. Apologies for the pronunciation. I'm trying to switch between Irish and African. Handed down a 1-year prison sentence, but suspended it on full strict conditions. 1 year was a joke enough, but to have it suspended, that he doesn't even see jail. He was suffering from mental illness at the time. There you go. Mental health card played. Hadn't been taking his medication. Gda Sgt Gda Collins told Sean Smith, prosecuting an 11-year-old girl and her mother and little brother were leaving a shopping centre on the day in question. They noticed a man later identified as Obelngoa. He was topless. Of course he was topless. Of course he was. And the mother described his movements as unnerving and said he seemed aggressive. Really? Gda Sgt Collins told Smith, oh, we've seen that one. Apologies. So anyway, the next line in that reads, the court heard the mother intended to walk on and avoid Obelngoa. As you do, you know. Crazy man walking towards you with no shirt on, acting aggressively. You're there with your children. She planned to walk on and avoid him, but he didn't plan on being avoided. She suddenly noticed her daughter had disappeared from her peripheral vision. What a nightmare. Look at him. Imagine that thing coming at you and your children with no top on, aggressively. That's what we're dealing with here. The woman turned around and saw her visually impaired daughter being dragged away by Obelngoa. The little girl was screaming and crying and struggling to get away. Mother described her daughter as bouncing off the ground. He then threw the child into a concession stand. Oh, but it doesn't stop there, folks. He's just getting warmed up. Stephan's just getting warmed up. 2 security guards immediately subdued Obelngoa. When Gardaí arrived, they found him shouting, roaring, and aggressive as he was being restrained. Of course he was. The savage. then spat a mixture of blood and saliva into the face of a gardaí. So he valiantly assaults this child, bounces her off the ground, throws her into the concession stand, roaring, aggressive, shouting and screaming, and then spits blood and saliva into the face of a guard. He also tried to bite them. Of course he did, like a rabid dog. Specialist Gardaí interviewed the young girl and she described being dragged like a doll, dragged on the floor. She said, "I thought he was going to drag me away forever and would kidnap me. Don't worry, kid. He's not even going to jail. He's deemed a low risk of reoffending and he's under strict conditions. Don't you worry. I'm sure everything's going to be just fine. I'm sure you're not going to be traumatized for life for this, along with your mother and your little brother." It's the disgrace. The girl was examined. The kid was examined. She suffered minor spinal, soft tissue tenderness and abrasions. She had trouble sleeping and was extremely anxious in public places like shopping centres. You would think the sentence was mounting up, mounting up, mounting up, mounting up. Garda sergeant agreed that Garda were unable to interview her client after he was arrested. This is the savage, the attacker. He was made an involuntary patient at Tallaght Hospital where he remained for a period of time. The guard agreed that CCTV footage showed that the incident lasted a matter of seconds. Oh, that's great. So in a matter of a few seconds, he managed to grab a child, drag her along the ground, bounce her off the ground, throw her into the concession stand, get jumped by two security guards, and then spit blood and saliva into the face of one guard and attempting to bite them also. Matter of seconds. Imagine what he could do if he had half an hour. Client suffers from schizophrenia, given antipsychotic medicine every 3 months, but he had been off the meds and was self-medicating with herb. Counsel said her client is currently under supervision of probation, has undertaken community response programs. So, still walking around and will continue to. He's at low risk of reoffending. I'm sure that's consolation for that child and her mother. These are very serious offences, said the judge. This was when I covered it a few weeks ago, but she's had time to think about it, which is fantastic. In sentencing, the judge noted the injured party was walking past him with her mother when he threw her into a concession stand, had to be pepper sprayed. The judge asked Sergeant Collins to explain to the injured party that we can't punish people for things like that aren't their own fault. And if he takes his medication, he's never going to come near her again. So the judge asked the guard to explain to that little child that was severely traumatized that we can't punish people for things that aren't their own fault. Is this the biggest joke? The judge asked the guard to explain to that little girl that we can't punish people for things that aren't their own fault. And if he takes his medication, he'll be fine. You've nothing to worry about. That's disgusting. She said the onus was on the defense to establish their client was suffering from a mental illness, and she was satisfied they had done so. Listen to this. She noted he was unmedicated for 6 months and was displaying his genitals in public while in hospital. What a charmer. What a charmer. The appropriate sentence was 18 months. I would have thought 18 years minimum. She had to take account of his guilty plea, which saved the injured party, the child, the visually impaired little girl, giving evidence. Judge noted he was 24 but was in college, dropped out and on bail for 6 offences, but there was a positive probation report and he was at low risk of reoffending if he continued on the same path. Now, brace yourselves for this. This is the cherry on this disgusting foul cake of injustice. She imposed 1 year imprisonment term. 1 year to run concurrently on each of the assault charges, but in view of the effect prison would have on him, she suspended it for 2 years on strict conditions. Now, we can't hurt this man's feelings. We can't do anything to set this man back. This man who didn't take his medication, this man who was running around with no top on, acting aggressively, grabbing children, bouncing them off the ground, throwing them into concession stands, screaming and shouting, spitting blood and saliva into the faces of Gda Sgt Collins, trying to bite them, taken away for assessment and exposing himself publicly in a hospital. He's at low risk of reoffending. And we certainly wouldn't want to set him back by putting him into prison. Oh, no. This just takes the biscuit, folks. I mean, like, really? I'm pretty sure I know how you're going to feel about this, but dump and vent your frustrations in the comment section below. I just think this is beyond a joke. This is just beyond a joke. Imagine how that child feels right now, how that mother feels. Getting the guards to explain to the child, we can't punish people for things that aren't their fault. Of course, it's not his fault. No responsibility whatsoever. None. He's the victim, really. It makes me want to be sick. But anyway, for now, I'm Rick Munn. This is No Risk, No Reward Media, and I am over and out.